Well, hello everybody. This is your old pal, Larry Kirshner. We're going to have a very interesting conversation today about what has changed in the haunted house industry over the last 10 years and what might the haunted house industry look like 10 years from now. And we're going to talk about that because that was very inspiring to talk about this topic because of this guy, and he goes by the name of let's see if I get this right, Mr. Halloween Junkie on TikTok. This guy is clearly a goofball, but I do give him credit because he has a pretty nice little TikTok page where he dedicates his page to talk about animatronics, Halloween stuff. And apparently he's building his own haunted house. This is him right here. And let's listen to a little.
Animatronics and stuff on this page.
Yeah, see, listen to him.
Anything about me, you also know that I do a haunted house every year.
This is the guy.
A very small one, but I still do one every year. And I've been in the Halloween scene for a very long
So
time
he
now, basically since I was like
basically makes a lot of interesting observations of how haunts have changed over the last 10
If you
years.
think of your local haunted house, you're probably
Listen to
thinking
this.
the same thing a lot of other people are thinking. Just some hallways, maybe a jump scare here and there, a big scary prop, some actors chasing you around with a weapon or two or some shit like that. And if your haunted house feels very generic or dependent on jump scares, there's a high probability that the owner of that haunt is a fucking boomer or something, or maybe Gen X. And it's no hate to the older generation of haunters either. It's just a very different style of haunting because the art has evolved quite a bit over time. And a lot of those common tropes are attributed to just, older generations and how they used to do it. But in the past 10 or so...
Okay, so I think you get the gist, okay? So, just so we're on the same page, this goofball has a page and he mostly opens boxes of Spirits Halloween animatronics, Home Depot animatronics, and things like this. And he got quite a few views on this video that he did, and he basically in a nutshell says that haunted house owners, the older ones, I guess like myself, that would include, Headless Horseman. I don't know if people know this, but Netherworld, the owner, one of the Ben Armstrong, I think he turned 60 not that long ago, so he would definitely be old. 13th Gate is known for being one of the best haunted houses. He's in his mid-50s. I think the owner of 13th Floor is in his 50s. I'm thinking, like Bates Motel. I mean, he's got to be in his 60s. The owners of Headless Horseman, I believe they're like in their 70s. Haunted Overload, I'm not sure how old he is, but my guess is he's in his 50s. Anyway, the point is that most of the big haunts that people know and love, the owners are, 50s, 60s, and some 70s. And one of the reasons why these haunts are so immersive, they have so many amazing props and animatronics and set design and over the top, special effects. Let me give you an example. Here at the Darkness, we put in a flying rig. The same kind of rig system that you would see in a Cirque du Soleil show, for example. So this guy, Mr. Halloween Junkie, he's talking about older generations where boo scare, we jump out, we pop out, we don't, and he goes on and on and on, and I've got his whole list here, and I'm going to go through it. And he talks about the younger generation is more about immersiveness and things of this nature. Okay, what exactly is he talking about? Because the best haunted houses in the country that have all the things that he wanted are owned by older people. And the other thing he mentioned, which was actually really funny, is he says the next generation of haunts are going to be more immersive. He talks about how the you will stop the customers in the middle of the haunt and interact with them and do some kind of like theatrical performance before they move on. And they're absolutely, I think in his words, will be absolutely terrifying. Okay, well, number one, let me tell you one of the things that have changed over the last 10 years in a haunt, and you can take this to the bank, is that if your haunt is absolutely terrifying, you're probably not going to get as many customers today as you would in 1995, is when Mr. Halloween Junkie is referring. Because in 1995, Mr. Halloween Junkie, haunted house owners might actually be using real chainsaws. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about with the blade. They might be chopping wood with it. They're carrying real axes and machetes. I mean, yeah, it was down and dirty. I don't think anybody had insurance. I mean, this was fly by the seat of your pants kind of stuff. I mean, things have drastically changed, especially with safety, and I would say that was one of the big changes in the 90s was, you know, sprinkler systems, fire alarms, heat detection, smoke detection, whatever. All the wiring being done a certain way, emergency doors, emergency exits. All of these things, you know, fire retardants, all these things came into play. And this is what got rid of the haunted houses prior to when I started. So I started in 1989, and I ran a haunted house called House on Haunted Hill for 5 years before I started The Darkness in 1994. So when we first started, I mean, you know, there was no inspections or anything. The inspections didn't come for House on Haunted Hill like until like, oh, you're drawing a lot of people over here. What's going on over here? And so the haunted houses started to become more regulated by the government. And by the way, that was a good thing, not a bad thing. I'm definitely a Republican, not a Democrat. I don't believe in a lot of regulations on business. I think they stifle business. I think they hold business back when they overregulate, where the government thinks they know more than the business owner. We're in deep trouble, okay? But in this case, I think, you know, government regulation is good for haunted houses because, I mean, if any fly-by-night person can just open a haunted house with no concern whatsoever about people getting injured or something catching on fire, this is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for our industry. It's not a good thing for the public at large. It's not good on any level. So I think that government regulation is really good for haunted houses. I think they're good for amusement parks. I think they're good for any of those things, so that, you know, safety is really important. So with that being said, that was the big change really in the 90s, was the safety part. But what this man, Mr. Halloween Junkie, is talking about, I mean, he's lost his mind. It's like he hasn't actually visited any haunted houses whatsoever because he really doesn't know what he's talking about. Because, I would say in the last, and we can go back, like when the first time The Darkness did a haunt tour, the only thing, when we did that first haunt tour, the only thing we cared about was the sets, was the immersive sets. And I think we were one of the first haunts, if not the first haunt ever, in the haunt industry, and we made videos about this, how to detail your haunt and everything else. Well, when you're trying to open for the haunted house industry, the only thing you can think about is like everything you see, you know, making it very detailed, because the people that are going to be viewing the haunt probably don't care as much about does an actor jump out or not. They want to see the sets, they want to see the scenery. So, you know, we looked at the ceilings, we looked at the floors, and we tried to like incorporate total immersiveness by detailing the scenes from floor to ceiling. And now it's very commonplace. I'm not saying it's because of us, but it is very commonplace today to try to put on like slatted looking ceilings on your roof or whatever, right? To try to make it look like you are really in a haunted mansion. This is pretty commonplace across the entire haunted house industry. So I really don't know what this guy's talking about, because I would say that every haunted house today is trying to be immersive. Now, yes, it is true that some are more immersive than others. Now, why is The Darkness more immersive than your normal Joe Blow haunted house? Or in this guy's case, he says the new haunts are taking over. Well, they're not taking over, just FYI. Because when we go onto Creepy World and we look at Creepy World, and we're going to be making videos about Creepy World Creepy World's been there for over 20 years, okay? This is layering the cake. You keep, adding and adding and adding and adding. You can't build all this in overnight. Universal Studios is building a brand new theme park in Orlando. I can't wait. It's called Epic. And if they could, they would have opened it, hey, can we get this open in 2 weeks? Of course you can't, okay? They've been working on it for multiple years. That's what it takes. And they're going to continue to work on this theme park for multiple decades after. And that's why it just keeps getting better and better and better, because you learn from operating a haunted house. You don't learn from seeing a haunted house. You learn from operating it. And so as Universal or Disney or any haunted house owner will know and acknowledge, is that when you're operating, that's when you see the mistakes. That's where you see where you could make improvements. You see those from being in the middle of it. And so the people that are designing haunted houses from scratch today really don't know what they're doing. They think they do, but they don't. And it's the older generation haunts, the one this guy's complaining about, that know the best way to maze a building, the best way to get the safety features in the fastest way, make it the cheapest. They know when they walk into a building if this will work or not. I mean, there's so many things, you learn as you go. And so when you've been doing it for 30, 35 years, you obviously know more than the younger generation, as this guy clearly is totally lost with. So let's kind of go over some of the things that he talked about. He says the boomer or the Gen X. Okay, I don't know which one I am. I've never referred to myself as either, but I can refer to myself as somebody with a lot of experience, and this person has none. So he clearly does not know what he's talking about, because the best, most immersive haunts in the entire haunted house industry are the ones that are operating today, and mostly by people over the age of 45, let's say. He says that the old style haunt is jump scares chasing with weapons. And yes, I would agree with you, Mr. Halloween Junkie. In the 1990s, in the 1980s, I would absolutely agree with you. There was very little effort put into set design or detail, and most of the scenes were based on haunted movies and so on and so forth. Another thing that this guy said, which was literally freaking so stupid, was he says, well, today the new haunters can refer to video games. And then they can play these video games and understand a better, more immersive environment. So he's essentially saying that your inspiration is going to come from horror video games. Well, Mr. Halloween Junkie, just in case you don't know, the biggest horror video game of all time is Resident Evil. That came out in 1996, the first video game. You also refer to Silent Hill. Silent Hill came out, I think, in 1998, just so we're on the same page. House of the Dead, I believe, came out in 1996. The three biggest horror video games in the history of horror came out in the 90s. So what are you talking about? Like when I was, in my late 20s, going to my early 30s, we had horror video games. What are you talking about? But anyway, he also says that there's going to be a shift from gore, jump scare haunts to theatrical, artistic haunts. I think that's already happened across every haunt, and I think this really started happening when haunted houses were able to start sharing information, like through the Hauntworld videos, from the Hauntworld message board, and it gravitated to YouTube and Facebook. One of the biggest changes in the haunted house industry, Mr. Halloween Junkie, was YouTube. YouTubers going through Universal Studios Horror Nights. I mean, when you look at Grim Life Collective's page, they have now documented multiple haunted houses. We're able to go and watch those videos and see what other people are doing. There's also a national haunted house trade show, which is right here in St. Louis, which also spawned a bunch of other trade shows, like one that just happened. And haunters get to go on haunt tours now. They get to go see other haunts. This is what has changed the haunted house industry. And it didn't just happen 10 years ago. It's been happening for about 15 to 20 years, Mr. Halloween Junkie. And you're dead wrong about that as well. As far as haunted house is concerned, gore is very much alive in horror movies. It's also very much alive in haunted houses. I wouldn't say that is, The Darkness has gore. Creepy World has gore. We actually have one haunted house that's nothing but gore. And when you have a Scream Park, having one haunted house that's gory, one haunted house that's 3D, one that's a haunted mansion, one that's a haunted hayride, a little bit of something for everyone. This is not a bad thing. Gore will never, just so we're on the same page, Mr. Halloween Junkie, horror will never leave the haunted house industry, despite what you said. And furthermore, when you look at the most popular horror movie character in the business right now, that would be Terrifier. And that thing is so bloody, so disgusting. I mean, I don't even know where to start. So when you want to start like eliminating all gore, you absolutely would alienate quite a few people that like Halloween. You also mentioned that new haunts stop customers. Well, this is not true, Mr. Halloween Junkie. So I would like you to go to Universal Studios Horror Nights, for example, and find a haunted house where they literally stop the customers in the middle of the haunt. So let me explain, because clearly you don't know anything about a haunted house. People go into the haunt and they're allowed to freely walk through the attraction. And yes, there's some haunts where they stop you for like a reconnect through another queue line. But even though they stop you in, let's say, a big room, they're still constantly letting people in. So when you get in that room, there might be somebody that came into that room 3, 4, 5 minutes later and they're going in. They're never stopping. They're never stopping. People are constantly going. At Creepy World, you go through a haunt, maybe 2 haunts, you go into a queue line. If that's what you're talking about, that is true. But in a haunted house setting, in a warehouse, this is literally not really even possible to just stop people cold, because it would create a backup that would be astronomical. Or the other problem is the line would wrap around the building 8 times and the last customer would go in at 5 or 6 in the morning. I mean, that's what would happen. So even if you were able to kind of sort of stop somebody, you would stop them in, say, a big room where they're almost like re-queued and there might be some interactive things going on, but then people are still going in, okay? You have to understand, you're getting stopped for a very little bit of time. But you can't ever stop the flow of a haunted house, is the point that I'm trying to make to you. He claims that new haunters are more into set design. Mr. Halloween Junkie, this is simply not true, okay? Every haunt is into set design, and they have been into set design from the first day they tried to build a haunted house. They just weren't as good at it in 1984 as they are in 2014 to 2024. Does this make sense to you? But everyone is learning a lot from being able to watch videos on YouTube or experiencing other people's haunts, going to the trade show, and there's so many manufacturers now as well. And this is one of the big things too, Mr. Junkie, that you've missed. Back in the as you call it, the old days, there was just a Halloween retail show. That was it. And they had a few haunted house vendors. Now there's an entire haunted house show and people making products for people who create escape rooms, haunted houses, immersive environments. And when you go to Transworld now, which is the Halloween Christmas trade show, there's going to be all kinds of vendors that sell detail equipment, whether it's vacuum form, rust paint, or any of these kinds of things, and everything between. And that is also a contributor, but it's not because new haunts are opening. I mean, you clearly don't know anything. He also said that that haunts have become more immersive, like Disney's Haunted Mansion. Well, everybody's been going to Disney's Haunted Mansion for decades. Okay, there's not a haunted house in the country that doesn't aspire to be as detailed as Disney's Haunted Mansion. You act like Disney's Haunted Mansion just popped up like 5 minutes ago. It was there before you were born, just FYI. And people have been going to it along with a bunch of other haunts in this industry and learning. And now they can learn from YouTube and other methods. So anyway, I am not... not trying to beat up on you, but clearly you shouldn't be making videos when you don't know what you're talking about. But with all that being said, what has changed over the last 10 years, and what do I think the haunt industry will be like 10 years from now? I'm not going to ask Mr. Junkie his opinion. He should go to Spirits and get more costumes, more animations, which, by the way, I think all those things are cool. I go to Spirits. I like Spirits. It's fun to walk through there. It's fun to walk through Home Depot. On my channel, I have literally gone to Home Depot and made videos of these. And if I wasn't in the haunt industry, I would literally count the minutes and days down until those animations came out, because they're $200 and $300. They're fun. They're absolutely fun, and they would be fun to buy and utilize all over your haunt. But what I'm saying is, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about on a professional haunted house. The animations in some cases cost $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. That's totally different than buying a plastic motorized animation for $300. I'm sorry, that doesn't mean that you know what you're talking about. Especially, you really lost me when you're talking about, well, now we have video games. Resident Evil video game came out in 1996, dude. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, in 1996, Jesus Christ, I would have been, you know, just like barely 30 years old. Was that considered old? Anyway, with all that being said, the main things that have really changed over the last 10 years, in my opinion, the things that changed a lot are that haunts diversified their business. They opened escape rooms, they opened axe throwing facilities, they opened mini escapes, they opened other attractions that you could buy a ticket to, they opened gift stores. They really embraced photo opportunities. I think the biggest thing is they embraced the fact that it's not a bad thing to let influencers come through your haunt and make videos, TikTok videos, and so on and so forth. And then have outside actors. I think that there was haunts that have outside actors, but very few. Now it's very commonplace. Like when you think about sliders, which were made famous by Knott's Berry Farm, not Scary Farm, to be exact. Nobody picked up on that really for many, many years. But now it's commonplace. Like every haunt wants to have sliders. There's people on TikTok and Instagram who become, you know, like influencers, so to speak, from just doing sliding. It's kind of crazy. And it's very cool. And, you know, Knott's Scary Farm probably has the best overall team of sliders in the country because they've really based their whole thing on it for so many years. But when you look at haunts from 10 years past the last 10 years, you know, I would say that most haunts didn't have any of these things. I also think that over the last 10 years, haunts have really embraced technology in a way that it wasn't available prior to that, like video playback. You can do CGI effects. You can do audio triggered effects. All of these things have become very affordable and easy for people to use. Now you see some haunts trying to use video mapping to everything in between. So technology has really changed the haunt industry over the last 10 years. But I think the biggest thing overall was that if you want to grow your business, you have got to tone down the marketing of, hey, these are the scariest haunted houses in the world, because there's just so many people that won't go because they think it's too scary. This is the most fun you'll ever have this Halloween. I think the message has got to be different. Another thing that I think has changed big league over the last 10 years is that people have put more energy into making trailers for their haunt. promotional videos for TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, etc., etc. I would say that if you go from 10 years behind the last 10, you would see a lot of videos, but they were really poor. And now they're really, there's a lot of thought put into them, a lot of creativity put into them. The technology on video editing and filming has really elevated the haunted house industry as well. So these are some of the things that I was saying are big changes over the last 10 years from the previous 10. Now, the next question is, where would the next 10 years go? Man, I really would love to get Mr. Halloween Junkie's opinion on this. And by the way, Mr. Halloween Junkie, if you are in St. Louis, and you have my personal invitation, Mr. Halloween Junkie, and kudos to you. You have 170,000 TikTok followers, and you have producing great content, especially for home haunters, I would say mostly. But kudos to you. But you really don't know enough about professional haunted houses to be talking about it like you do. And by the way, lose the mic. I mean, in his videos, he's literally holding a little mic just like this to his mouth. Get that on the ground and get it out of the camera. It looks kind of goofy. But Mr. Halloween Junkie, if you come to St. Louis, and I'm going to tell you the year I was born and how old I am, and you're going to say, wow, you are generation whatever, and you're old. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I know, it sucks. But we're going to go check out my haunted house. Let's find out if it's immersive. Let's find out if it has all the bells and whistles that you want. And let's see. Okay. I think that would be interesting. One of the things I will say, too, that's different about the haunted house industry is that, when you talk about the young people in this business, I don't think they're necessarily owners of haunts, but they're helping build scenes, they're helping paint scenes, they're helping manage actors. They have a lot of cool ideas. But you know who they've learned from? The people who've done it before them. That's how anything is done. When you look at the NFL, okay, and you look at offenses, they go back to learning from Vince Lombardi. He was big in running the ball. How do you block? How do you do this? And then the game just keeps elevating. Don Coryell, the master of the air offense, throwing the ball all over the place. You learn from these people, and then you innovate, you change, you update, you perfect. Okay, but you're always still learning from the people who came before you, because that's how you get better. But there is no question that the scenic painters and the techs and all these kind of people at 25 and 30 years old are light years ahead of where we were when we were 25 and 30. That's because the older people have advanced the industry to where it is. So these people had an opportunity to come in behind us and learn from us, but they're so further ahead. So who knows where they're going to be 10, 15 years from now. I mean, they'll be way past where we're at today, that's for sure. So kudos to them. I do think the haunted house industry, because of those people and because of the experiences that they've gained at a young stage in the game, is really going to help the haunted house industry when people like me are gone. And I say gone, not dead. Just not running a haunted house. So I do think that's going to get better. And it's not just because of young people. It's because the whole industry as a whole has brought the industry to its peak. It really is at its peak. And we have to ask ourselves, can we go over the peak? Or does the haunted house industry overall change? I think the next 10 years of haunted houses is going to change to where the haunted houses become more of experiences and not just relying on, as Mr. Halloween Junkie puts it, boo scares, jump scares, and things of this nature. It's already happening, but when you look at what's going on in some bigger cities where they're doing these Halloween pop-up bars, where they're literally putting, taking a field and putting lights up and all kinds of Halloween scenery and a Halloween maze, and there's all kinds of adult games, and you can buy all kinds of alcohol, and you pay $50 to even just to get in. What are they doing in there besides drinking? They're being social, and they're also taking a lot of photographs. They're making a lot of reels for their Instagrams or TikToks or Facebooks or Instagrams or whatever. And people have really embraced that. When you think about the entertainment that's available today, when you think about escape rooms being one of the first big break-offs, because I think the haunted house industry is kind of like the trunk, the tree. And then everything is just kind of like, I think when the haunted house industry was big, when it first started, it's still big now, but I think it was bigger then. It was just amusement parks and haunted houses. What other entertainment was there? Float trips, okay? Of course, it was all like a family fun center with mini golf. Yeah, that's what was there. But look at what has happened since escape rooms and axe throwing. Now you've got these people doing these like where you can book and play like TV game shows to these illusion places that are opening all over the country, and they're opening one here in St. Louis, to these immersive art experiences where, you know, Area 51 kind of started it, and now there's other ones like Otherworld, and I know there's several others. There's just all this new kinds of entertainment. Now there's also these interactive we did a video on it. It was called it's on our channel, and we filmed it in Vegas. I think it was called Play. It's like where there's competition, kind of escape, kind of problem solving things, and you compete against each other. When you think about mini golf, you think about like how crazy they've gotten indoors. You also think about like Putt Shack, where you can score because the ball's got a chip in it, to the golf outside where you hit the golf balls and you score points. There's so many things to do now. It's like outrageous, okay? And every city's getting all these like events, and but you know why these things are successful now is because of social media. You can start a business, and if you understand social media, you can promote it. And everybody wants to do things socially. They want to do things with their friends. They want to take a lot of photos. They want to make reels. And when I think about haunted houses, I think that haunted houses are going to have to kind of sort of absorb some of that, the way that the younger buyers of entertainment think. And you're going to have to embrace more of the experience. When I think about Hush Haunted House, for example, and I haven't been there, I've just seen a video. When I think about his haunt, and he has all these secret bars, and he has this big long queue line, and there's like secret bars and experiences before you go into the haunted house. This is an example of what I'm talking about. He's literally marketing a Halloween experience that has a haunted house. Now you have these bars that are popping up, and they want to have a Halloween themed Halloween experience in their bar that has a mini haunted house. But I do think that most haunted houses now are looking into getting liquor licenses. They're looking into taking space away from their haunted house to do secret bars. They're taking space out of their haunted house to do gift stores, or they're figuring out how to get more space to add gift stores. When you think about the fact that you can open year-round businesses inside of your space, like mini golf, escape rooms, or you know, this one thing is crazy where you smash stuff, okay? It all relates. It all goes together. So in my opinion, a new haunted house that would open today would not, if they had a 30,000 square foot space, they would not build a 30,000 square foot haunted house. 10 years ago, you would build a 30,000 square foot haunted house. Today, you'd build a 15,000 square foot haunted house, and then the other 15,000 square feet would be more attractions that can somehow be linked to the haunted house that could be open year round. And when you think about haunts today, they're opening for Krampus. Oh, okay, that's where we started. And then it was Valentine's. Okay. And now it's halfway out of Halloween. It's Scream Break. It's opening for like a leprechaun theme because it's St. Patrick's Day. Haunts are trying to figure out ways to be open all the time. And if you were building a haunted house today and you had 30,000 square feet, you would be out of touch if you built a 30,000 square foot haunted house and not a 15,000 square foot haunted house where you could open it periodically all year, and it was connected to, say, let's say a mini golf, a bar, escape rooms, a smash thing, a Halloween bar, maybe. I mean, these are the things that people would do going forward. So in my opinion, 10 years from now, we'll be looking at haunts. And that haunt used to be 50,000 square feet. Now it's 40,000 square feet, and 10,000 square feet of it is now year round, and it's tied into the haunted house. That's what I think is going to happen over the next 10 years. So anyway, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And Mr. Halloween Junkie, follow him on TikTok. And hopefully I wasn't too hard on you. And by the way, but your video inspired me to talk about this topic because I think it's an important topic. I just think that you totally don't know what you're talking about. And you're more than invited to come to my haunt, and I'll give you a tour. We'll have a drink, and we'll talk Halloween, and we'll have a great old time. So until next time, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And I hope you got something out of this video, and I'd love to hear your comments below. And you tell me where you think the haunted house will be 10 years from now. Until then, c'est la vie. Right here from St. Louis Escape, where we're going to do another video showing you our alien escape room.